Welcome back, everyone, to the Utrecht Special Event 2023. I'm Joe Bernard. Alongside me is Shea Burton. We're getting into the mix of things now, getting a few rounds underway. We've already seen some great talent on show. How's it been today so far?
Oh, I've been very excited. I must have been a little bit envious. First two rounds, I've been sitting back, having to walk around the table, thinking, when's it my time to get involved? But now, round three, here we go. And I'm very excited to be joined here with Joe. And we've got a pretty fun matchup, actually. A matchup that I think isn't too easy to call, at least from face value.
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen a good diversity of decks so far on the stream, and it looks like we're bringing even more interesting matchups ahead. Looks like we have our first Lugia of the day. It was inevitable. It's always going to happen at some point. And it's going to be up against Hisuian Gudra V Star, a deck that sort of come out of the woodwork in the latter stages of this format.
Yeah, like we've been still seeing some really good success, right? I mean, second place, Bochum, and we've even been seeing some slight innovations. Like we saw Stefan in round one having the Articuno in there. Yeah, and then we've even seen, you know, the big parasols getting retracted, and then, you know, the addition of Choice Belt giving Gudra a little bit of an extra offensive punch. A deck not really known for its offensive power, but gives it a little bit extra over the finish line.
Yeah, I really like that Articuno inclusion from Stefan. I think it's a bit of extra respect for Lugia players, where you can try and buy yourself that additional turn with some paralysis, sometimes even a couple of turns, and you can whittle Pokemon into range of the Gudra as well. So it can be a really nice addition to that deck list. Another new innovation. People are still finding ways to adapt the best decks in the game.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. I feel as if I was playing this event and I was testing what deck I want to play, I feel as if, at least for me, and I think realistically, if we're all honest with ourselves, viewers, for you guys at home, we're not testing against Gudra. We just think, we won't run into that. No one actually plays that. They just run their gambit. So I feel as if you are playing Gudra, I do think a lot of the time people be like, what do I actually do here, right?
Well, yeah, compare it to Lugia. Everyone's played a million games against Lugia at this point, even just by virtue of coming to a couple of events. So everyone goes in with game plans, especially for the top 2 or 3 decks in the game. And Gudra sits in that realm where everyone knows it's available, but you may end up hitting it once or twice in the day at most, but you may also just not hit it in the day. So it may be one of those archetypes that you put less games of testing in, so it's a really good point.
Yeah, like I know for me personally, I'm going to test against Mew, going to test against Lost Spot's going to test against Lugia, and I don't know, I'm not sure if I've got as much time to be testing against Gudra, but it looks like here we are going to go to the players, and we have some fantastic players lined up for us.
Yeah, 2 veterans of the game, really. Simone Soldo on the left, Luke Burke on the right. Luke was a senior division top 4 Worlds player many years ago now. Obviously, he has aged up into the Masters division and has been for a number of years. And Simone Soldo, I remember all the way back at Italian Nationals when I first saw this player showing off their skills, and he's been around the block for a long time. Looks like he's the one playing the Gudra today.
So 2 veterans of the game who have seen many different formats, many different events, and you have to imagine going to be veterans of the game who are going to know insides and outs, and maybe might not necessarily panic if they get, you know, in a situation and haven't really been expecting. So this is definitely going to be a good game to watch.
And I'm pretty sure both these players have changed things up for this tournament. I know Luke at the previous event was playing Palkia V-Star with the Articuno of his own, actually, in his deck list, and has also played a lot of Lost Zone box this season, but he's eventually given in and started to play some Lugia instead. And Simone as well, I've played up against him actually in a few tournaments this season, and he was playing Lost Zone box with the 1 prize focus, but now he seems to have moved on to the Gudra, and he's actually playing the Articuno himself here, which is, again, could be a big card in the matchup.
I wonder if that's something that have all these Gudra players sort of come to the same conclusion, or are they all in like cahoots in group chats thinking, you know what, lads, if we get some Articunos, we can actually have a good go against Lugia, and that's actually going to be massive. Let's look at these prize cards here. So for Simone, we do see 1 copy of the Gudra, 1 copy of Temple of Sinnoh, and 2 Pokegear. So not the best prize cards, I feel. And over at Luke, a lot of ball search there, 2 Ultra Balls and Evolution Incense and the Lugia and Oranguru as well. So not the best prize, is not the worst.
Yeah, I think both players can more or less just sort of take that on the chin. Something's going to be prized at the end of the day, it seems pretty reasonable for both players. No one in a huge disarray here, as it looks like Simone will be kicking us off in round 3. He's started with the Hisuian Gudra V and has the lovely Battle VIP pass to kick things off.
It's just such a relief when you have that in your open hand. You can just immediately, as we're seeing here, Simone doing a little deck prize check, I should say, and you can just get your Pokemon out rolling. Like, I feel as if the win rate, if you have that VIP battle pass, just skyrockets. And you know, Simone has got some interesting things for Lugia. I'm very intrigued to see how prevalent this Articuno is.
Yeah.
And I'm really intrigued to see how much the Temple of Sinnoh sticks, because without the big parasol, Amazing Ray Yveltal has free reign to just go through the rolling iron and just take an auto KO.
Yeah, some players opt to go for that sort of double-layered protection and force a Stadium Bounce and a Lost Vacuum on the same turn. That's a lot for a Lugia player to acquire, but some go for that sort of softer lock and say that just forcing them to find a Stadium Bounce on the Yveltal turn is enough, and hope that even if a Yveltal does come off, it'll only be once, because then you'll roll through it with your next Gudra, and hopefully you haven't lost too much tempo in the process. As Simone continues to set up here, VIP pass into the capture energy, so he's really on all cylinders from the get-go.
Love to see it. And one interesting thing that I'm going to be intrigued to see is that, you know, Simone does play Articuno, you know, really good for paralyzing, locking Lugia. That's how Lugia was vulnerable, you know, in the early stages of the format. Luke does play one copy of the Bird Keeper, though, so he will have that defense, you know, to try and maneuver around the paralysis. But again, it's just asking questions, you know, because while I alluded that Gudra isn't the most offensive deck, it does enough pressure, 200 damage is enough to where you have to respect it almost.
Yeah, especially with that huge reduction of damage, you can really undo a lot of plans from the opponent. And we will see finally the first flower selecting here from Simone after a concealed cards. Everything's going his way so far, but looks like he has the debate between a capture energy, which he's holding for the next turn, and one of his boss's orders will hit that lost zone to begin here.
Yeah, he does play 2 copies of boss as well, so that could be something worth noting. I believe in the Bokken finals we did see Gudra, you know, effectively targeting down the Archeops, which is, you know, a strong play. So with only one boss's orders available, might not be an option Simone now has for the rest of the game.
Yeah, typically it's a little bit slower than maybe an Arceus Duraludon to start using those boss's orders, because you have to get to 7 first with the Gudra to be able to use Mirage Gate and boss's orders. So it's still one of those game plans that's sort of available sort of mid-game. It's not quite as mandatory as maybe the Arceus Duraludon players. As we continue to see more and more Flower Selects, really strong start to get 3 already in the Lost Zone pre-supporter. You've already got 1 Gudra established with an energy. It's pretty much the picturesque turn here, as Simone is going to pass over to Luke, who started off with a Snorlax, and that can be quite handy, especially because Simone has the option to Cramorant early. You're not too fussed about a Snorlax getting hit with a Cramorant, thanks to it's basically in the deck to be this sort of tanky one-prize Pokemon.
Yeah, you normally see that Snorlax being utilised really well and stuff like Lost Box, and just a strong attacker, you know, when you 180 damage, normally can tank many hits, and it's just a one-prize that puts on a ton of pressure, especially if you combine it with like an Aqua Return, you can promote it, try and tank hits. Snorlax, I think, is a fantastic addition to the Lugia decks, and it's something I'm surprised we don't see more staple, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's kind of been in and out of the deck list. It's always that sort of 58th card where people start debating whether or not it's worth it. Luke undoubtedly is going to capture energy for a Lugia V here, and is then going to continue to search a little bit more with a Quick Ball by the looks of things. There's not too much else he needs to do this turn, honestly. Just getting 1 Lugia established is pretty good, but he's also going to throw away a Manaphy, I believe, to Quick Ball, and going to continue to search out some basic Pokemon. Looks like a second Lugia. It's actually quite good to use your Lugia V-Star in this matchup just because of the size of them, and you know you're getting damage reduction, so rather than sending in lots of one-prize Pokemon to, you know, slowly chip away at something, you'd rather do a higher threshold of damage and force a 2-shot from both sides.
Yeah, 100%. And that Lugia, you know, like you said, it's going to have a higher damage output, and you can save the Auroras then, so if you do get to catch a Vettel or maybe even a Raikou to take out 2 Comphase, you can just save those Aurora energies for them targets. As we do see the turn 2 Marnie, which can often be crippling for the player going first, so I'm intrigued to see what Simone has drawn. Now over to Luke, though, does have an Evolution Instance and a Quick Ball, so I assume we might see the Archeops in the discard pile turn 1, and that's, I think, something you love to see as a Lugia player.
Yeah, and Simone does play Hand Disruption, but it's in the form of Roxanne, so Luke can quite happily just hold this Archeops. He doesn't need to necessarily Quick Ball. Looks like he is opting to. I wouldn't mind seeing a Pumpkaboo come to hand here, just to have the option. Possibly even threatening a single prize Pokemon attacker could be something you do in the early stages. He may even be using no target here, just keep his options open, because you know that 2 bench spaces are going to be committed to Archeops. You don't really want to force your way down one avenue, knowing that your only supporter in hand is Professor's Research.
Yeah,
interesting. Looking like the Yveltal here.
Wow, that is an interesting one. I mean, I guess It hasn't put it into bench. I just took it to
No,
hand.
it's into the hand,
Yeah.
but the only supporter in hand is currently Professor's Research for next turn.
Yeah.
So he's not like fully committed to this card, but it means he will be forced to use it fairly early on, and then you open yourself up to the likes of Boss's Orders. Maybe because Luke has already seen one Boss's Orders hit the Lost Zone, he feels a little bit more comfortable about this choice.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one there. Like you said, you'd love to see that, maybe come down the late game, you can instantly power up. Obviously not to bench it, obviously, though. And back over to Simone. So how did Marnie treat Simone? Obviously, he does have at least one flower tactic available, so you know that 5 can go up to 6. But let's see what options to do here. Options go for that first flower selecting, and we got water and, ooh,
it's a tough
interesting.
one.
We know that Articuno is going to be useful.
I mean, Articuno is here for the matchup, we presume. So that's why it's chosen over a water energy. Not the easiest choice for Simone. He does have more basic energy in hand to use his concealed cards here, but first we will see another scoop up nets, and it's going to be another Comfey here, selecting once again. We're at the 4th threshold, and now we go to 5, but it's going to be likely a Colress to help us get towards Mirage Gate.
Yeah, I think that's how we were going to have to be seeing for sure.
Might be a payment of retreat here. I don't see Colress in the hand for Simone. It's actually going to be a concealed cards first.
Oh, do you see a
And we hit Colress, that's massive. Really changing up what Simone can do this turn. We still need a few things. We need to find our V-Star, and we need to find another way to pivot this Comfey in order to start using that Rolling Iron. We do see Temple of Sinnoh's a big card.
Temple and Mirage Gate as well,
Mirage Gate
right?
as well. This is a really good 5 cards, to be honest with you.
Whoa. Yeah, that is incredible. That's the thing about the Lost Box decks is, again, against a lot of other decks, Marnie can be really crippling, but when you've got access to, 2, 3 flower selectings, you're seeing an extra, like, 6 cards, and then chances are some of them are going to be good, especially if concealed cards as well. As it stands now, there's no way to get the V-Star out by the looks of it, though.
Ooh, that's a little bit awkward.
Yeah, no V-Star, so...
And the regular V's attack doesn't do enough to knock out a Snorlax either. I believe it only does 140, so that's a little bit rough.
No way.
Looks like the defensive Temple of Sinnoh is going to be the option instead for Simone here.
So this leaves Luke a little bit of a window here, almost getting away with it there. That could have got a little bit out of hand there through the turn 2 Rolling Iron, but Luke give him a little bit of breathing room. He's going to have to obviously bench that Yveltal. We know we do see the Professor's Research in hand.
Yeah.
So big turn here for Luke.
Luke drew into V-Guard energy, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to commit your energy attachment. If you play Professor's Research, oh, interesting. So we are going to see the Aurora, simply because it's an Aurora energy, it's valuable enough.
Yeah.
But typically you would like to use a turn attachment after the Professor's Research, because the Aurora then would be an out for you to have another way of discarding your second Archeops, because there's currently only one in the discard pile for Luke here. So that's what we're looking for from this Professor's Research.
Yeah, so Luke needs to play a little mini-game here of getting Archeops in the discard pile and find a Lugia V-Star here. Otherwise, Luke is going to be stuck in Suspect City, and you have to imagine might not have had the best research day, body language and
definitely
fanning out the discard. Yeah,
we've got to find a V-Star, we've got to find a way of discarding another Archeops. There's a lot of hoops to still jump through. Looks like neither player is really...
Oh, we have the V-Star.
There's at least a Lugia V-Star. There's an Archeops, but no way to get rid of it, I don't think.
Do you ever consider the Summoning Star for 1 here? Is that ever an option?
That's the question running through Luke's mind. I feel like...
It looks like he's committed. The Summoning Star for 1 Archeops. Now, let's not make no mistake about it. Lugia can still operate with 1 Primal Turbo. Still getting 2 energy from the deck and attaching them is still strong, but let's not make any mistake about it. Half the energy can really transform how Lugia plays. Like, for example, this Lugia V-Star now cannot get set up in a turn. That Yveltal's going to take for more turn attachments from your hand to get that rolling. So Simone must be thinking, okay, I've got myself a little avenue here to victory.
Yeah, it's a big break for Simone. I really like Luke choosing to get rid of more capture energies at this stage, keep those double turbo energies in the deck. When you only have 1 Primal Turbo, those become even more valuable to be able to turn attach plus Primal Turbo to get a Lugia out of nowhere, or as you say, allow you to get that Yveltal in the mix as well. And it is going to be a thumping snore from Luke, getting a knockout, and it looks like he's remaining asleep here. You have to flip 2 coins to wake up your Snorlax, and it looks like no help from him. But at least Luke has been able to initiate the prize race. He's got a 1 prize tanky Pokemon in the active, so it would force Simone to still find that V-Star. That's what he was lacking on the previous turn.
We do see the first flower select in there, getting rid of that VIP, nice easy decision there. We do see 1 water energy, but I have to imagine the water energies might be starting to get a little bit thin, so I can see at least 2 in the discard pile, 1 in the prize card, so I'll be worrying about how much actual water energy is left. I mean, Gudra needs only 1, I believe, right, for its attack cost. But if you ever want to attack with Greninja, for example, that obviously needs 2 water energy. So that could be something worth noting. And I'm guessing by Simone's body language here, might not have... Yeah, I'm guessing it hasn't got...
Look at that. No poker face at all from Simone. When you don't have it, you don't have it. And he is looking like he's in a pretty bad position. This Snorlax is really... a threat to deal with. Looks like might have to turn attached to retreat for 1 more flower selecting here. Has a switch at least.
Okay, so that's not too bad. Here we see another flower selecting. Do we see a way to V-Star? What I think was that a V-Star or was that a basic V? I can't tell.
Not too sure. Another energy.
Might have been a V-Star, but
finally a V-Star.
It was a V-Star.
This could be the way, the avenue for Simone to get into the game. We will see an ordinary rod. Really important to recycle some energy here.
Love to see that.
Certainly has Mirage Gate. They were in the hand for a long time. And it looks like we're finally literally getting rolling with that Gudra.
Yeah, I see what you did there, Joe.
Thank you.
Getting rolling. Joe was born. I wouldn't pick up on that. Don't worry, Joe. I'm all up on the puns, mate.
Here we go.
Oh, it's a skate rope as well.
This is pretty reasonable.
This is an interesting decision here for Luke. What would you...
Yeah, I really like the V-Star because you were already committed to 2-hit KOing each other anyway, and rather than having to send up your V, then not finding the V-Star the following turn. Oh my goodness.
Oh goodness, so like I was saying earlier about how in the Bochum final we saw Gudra take out Archeops.
Wow.
Luke really getting punished there, summoning star for 1 Archeops, all of a sudden now no Archeops, and tell you what, that Yveltal's got a long time from getting set up. That Lugia V is on a long way of getting set up. It's going to be Snorlax versus the world. Oh my goodness.
What an insane hand from Simone. That 1 flower selecting. The final piece of the puzzle was the V-Star. We eventually got there, and now Luke is in a horrible position. Energy scattered on very vulnerable Pokemon.
Yeah.
So he's not going to get a lot of value. He's going to have to start turn attaching his way through this game. And without Archeops to speak of, it's just going to be very tough for him because Simone is just saying, here I am. I'm a massive Hisuian Gudra. I have the option to heal once fully as well. This Gudra is going to stick around the board for a number of turns. And Luke has no real way to keep this steady chain of attackers going.
Like, if you had to pick 1 attacker for Luke to try and take on a Hisuian Gudra deck when you got no Archeops out, Snorlax is low down because not only does it get 1 shot, but it also puts itself to sleep straight away, and it needs to flip 2 heads to even stay in it. And let's not forget, Luke is still under Temple of Sinnoh here, so you know that Yveltal isn't going to be getting set up anytime soon. Even if it did, it needs to be a staging replacement. So Luke has to be trying to real dig for those DTs to even stay in the game. But wow, I cannot believe Simone started off the turn shaking his head, exhaling, and all of a sudden I'm just like, bang, V-Star, Mirage Gate, Escape Rope, boss, have some of that, and I'm not surprised to see there was a concession there.
Luke's got to be thinking, what just happened? I thought my opponent was breathing heavily and panicking, and then he pulls out a monster turn against me. What an incredible swing from Simone there. We know that it's easily possible for Lugia to win games with only 1 Archeops, but when you commit your early Primal Turbos just to basic Pokemon, especially against a tanky Hisuian Gudra, you're just not going to get the job done. We thought it was a questionable play to only go with 1 Archeops, thinking that tempo obviously is massive in this game, but it opened that door for Simone, and even though 1 lost zone boss's orders, he was still able to find the next one and get it at the crucial time.
Yeah, I'd love to know if he drew into that off a flower select, maybe the first flower selecting that we saw, maybe drew into that boss, but my goodness. And it's sort of like a catch-22 there for Luke. Like, if you don't go for the 1 Archeops and you sort of wait a turn, Escape Rope boss will still live when you get first hit on a V-Star. And then if you do go for the 1 Archeops just to try and get in the game, just got bossed anyway. So, whoa, Simone sort of coming back there. It looked like he was on the ropes a little bit, but Gudra's giving it the old 1-2.
Yeah,
I know he's 1-0 up.
Yeah, 1-0 up against Lugia. Always a great feeling, especially when you're not playing the likes of Big Parasol that we've touched on. You're sort of trying to be a little bit cheekier, saying, oh, let's just make my deck work that little bit more. Let me not commit too many techs just to 1 matchup, but give myself just enough to win. We didn't quite see the Articuno either, so there's even more tricks up his sleeve that Luke hasn't even learnt about yet.
Yeah, because I don't think the Articuno got revealed. I think it just got put into hand by a flower selector, so it looks like even aware of that. So if we see, you know, Burkeep hit the discard pile for whatever reason, or Luminions get prized or anything like this, that Burkeeper might be hard to get to. And yeah, wow, I'm just... Normally you don't see Gudra win fast games. That's not really what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing, you know, Gudra come back, you know, roll around, tank some hits, Moisture Star, come back in, but Guja, the rare aggressor there. Love to see it.
Yeah, the good news for Luke, as we said, it wasn't his ideal setup by any means. You are usually looking for that double Archeops. That's what really makes the deck pop. So going into this second game, that's obviously going to be his priority. That's when you get to see energy flying all over the board, and he shouldn't have too much trouble keeping up with the attackers. And that's where we just had one of those games where everything went wrong for one player and right for the other. So it looked like a big swing in the game, but it's usually a much closer matchup than this.
Yeah, 100%. Like we said, as we were talking about before, Luke has played the game for a long time. So if anyone can navigate their way to reverse sweep, Luke is going to be high up there for me. And looking at Simone's prizes there, we see 1 V-Star, 1 Royal Hand, a Water, Mirage Gate, and an Ordinary Rod. Worth noting that he only plays 3 Mirage Gates in total, so there's only 2 left. But over at Luke's side, we alluded to how important Birdkeeper was to defend against Articuno. And that's in the prize cards as well.
It's right in the top of his prize cards. Luke at least gets to go first here, is going to use an Aurora Energy, not just to help power up his Yveltal here, but also can discard an Archeops. So he's already underway with his game plan. I also saw there was at least a Marnie in hand for the next turn, so he's got some things going for him. Simone with a very easy early flower selecting here, going to remove a Drapion. And we see Capture Energy here, so he can at least have another pivot into another flower selecting to continue with his turn.
Yeah, but I mean, if this flower selecting doesn't find something good, this hand looks a little bit suspect from Simone. I didn't see a Colress. I think I saw a Roxanne, and some other support that we don't want to see right now. So there's a lot of pressure on these flower selectings here.
If you're Simone, do you go for a flower selecting? You still see 2 cards, or do you go for the Greninja and keep 2? Because it's always one of those things where your mission is to get to 7 as quickly as possible. And if you're just looking for panic outs, mostly things like Colress at this stage or more VIP pass, those are the most important things for you. But I feel like also fueling your Lost Zone is still a big mini goal that you have in the opening stages. I'd like to see another Comfort here myself.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like a bit like Catch 22 again, right? Do you want to just try and defend yourself, or do you have to, you know, keep playing this mini game? And I think you kind of have to try and keep getting stuff in the Lost Zone, right? Because you need to, like, if it gets like turn 3 and you still haven't got 7, you're not going to do anything, are you? So
yeah, and there's only a few cards that can really help you here. You need Colress, or you need Battle VIP Pass, or just physical Pokemon. Interestingly, Simone is going for the Radiant Greninja. It might depend on how many energy he even has in hand, because if he has multiple energy in hand, he could then use Scoop Up Net just to reuse the concealed cards. So there are reasons for both here, as we are eyeing up a Water Energy at the very least for our first couple cards here before any more decisions from Simone.
I think this concealed cards has to do something playable here. Yeah, these have to be 2 Scoop on it. Okay, all right. So
that's pretty good.
That was not a bad 2 cards, actually, to be fair, off the Greninja. So we see the Pay Retreat, next fast, let's in, obviously we see a Scoop Up Net as well.
Any supporters in here? I think it's a VIP pass. I mean, look at that. Chorus and Battle VIP pass. You know it's crazy. Luke literally, his eyes darted at Simone when he chose to get rid of a Chorus. You know it's not great news for you.
If your opponent lost turns a Chorus and then playing a Lost Box, there you're thinking, oh my goodness, what was that card?
Simone going to start developing double Hisuian Gudra V, his main attacker in the matchup. We saw how effective it can be in that first game. So Simone really getting his board established. Doesn't have to worry too much about only getting 2 in the Lost Zone here. He may still have a supporter, but I didn't think I saw one. So I think he's going to be content with the pass here and work on that Lost Zone at a later stage.
Yeah, we definitely see a Raihan in the hand, so chances are this Comfey will be getting sent to discard pile on Luke's turn, hopefully for Luke. So the Raihan will be live. There's a Water Energy in the discard pile, so we could see that. Over to Luke, though. I believe that
has the Research and Archeops. That's pretty nice.
So that's 2 in the discard pile now, I believe.
Yeah, so now we just need to find a V-Star. We see lots of Evolution Incense. So Luke is going to be doing his plan A, the thing that he was unable to achieve in Game 1. He will now be summoning 2 Archeops into play, no problem. And once again, he's using his Snorlax to initiate the prize race. It's just this time his board is going to be a lot better.
I tell you what, it's a polar opposite game for Luke. Now, he even has the V-Star in hand already, a ton of Evolution Incenses. We're going to see Summoning Star for 2 Archeops, and now we're going to see Luke at full power here. Because when you've got 2 Archeops out, you are in such strong control of the game. Luke even has the Yveltal out already, so if Gudra does come out somehow next turn, Luke can just immediately dispatch it. And wow, it's going to be a strong position here for Luke.
Yeah, finally the double Archeops coming into play. And as we said, the size of this Snorlax taking a knockout is massive because Simone simply can't just come in and use Cramorant. He's forced to bring that Goodra into the firing line, and it's not really as comfortable in this situation because he's nowhere near 7 in the loss zone. He won't be able to use a proactive boss's orders. That Yveltal is more likely to be getting the job done in this game.
Yeah, we even saw there on the deck search, we saw the Stoutland, another card that Luke can utilize to pick up a Comfey at some point, just to close the game out with 2 prizes. So when you've got 2 Archeops out, that's your strength. And you can literally, any of your attackers are just a quick ball away. You can power them up in 1 turn. And yeah, this is looking a little bit suspect for Simone here. What do you reckon Simone's going to try to do to defend himself?
It's a little bit tricky. I actually think the scoop up net that he held on to could have been used just to bring Greninja into the active, so he had more flower selects to help him get to 7. Because I think without getting to the Mirage Gates, you're just allowing Luke to take prizes at will, and that's not something that you can really afford here, as Luke uses his 2nd Primal Turbo to begin getting to work on that Lugia pretty freely, to use those colorless energies so you keep your Auroras available for future turns. Now that he's committed 2 powerful, he still has 2 for Stoutland to be able to take a knockout on Comfey, so he's arranged his board perfectly here and is happy to simply thump his way through, and looks like still napping with the Snorlax, but again is initiating the prize race. Just like we saw in the first game, it's just this time he has a much better board setup, and Simone has a lot more work to do in terms of getting more into the loss zone.
One interesting thing as well, like you said, you know, Simone can't use Cramorant to get through this Snorlax. Can't utilise the Articuno either because Snorlax has the unfazed fat ability. It's like an inbuilt big parasol. So that Snorlax will not be getting paralysed as well. So
maybe something like Escape Rope would be one of the big finds for Simone here. If he could Escape Rope, even if you're hitting into an Archeops, it's something you could then sort of finish off later perhaps with Radiant Greninja and be a lot more effective than hitting into this Snorlax. As of right now, though, it's going to be another concealed card, the late VIP pass. You hate to see it.
Wow, not even off the flower selections you get rid of 1. And there isn't no chromatics in this deck or anything like this.
They're just going to stick around and clog up the hand, unfortunately, until you are able to find Bull Search. We are at least seeing a V-Star come into play. There is Raihan available to Simone, but again, you're just so light on your loss zone cards.
Yeah, and that's the sort of catch-22 here. Like, you can play the Raihan, but then you can't use it in combination with Mirage Gate to actually get your Goodra rolling. No Bull Search to try and maybe get Articuno. There's not a lot going on here, so maybe Simone tries to just get a Cramorant down just to try and 2-shot maybe and just hope the Snorlax stays asleep. I mean,
well, the Cramorant's in hand, but we're still only at 3 in the loss zone, so he still has more work to be done here. I think he was eyeing up a 2nd V-Star. He may just be content passing another turn here, but that can't feel too great. You're, again, relying on coin flips. The one thing that's kind of interesting is that if you force Luke to use a Bird Keeper early, you're assuming that he plays 1 switch out, whether it's Bird Keeper or whether it's Irida plus Escape Rope. If you force it early, it then sort of plays into your hands with the Articuno that you have in your deck list.
Yeah, exactly. You sort of bait out the Bird Keeper and or Escape Rope early, and then, like you said, try and stick the Articuno, which Luke still has no knowledge of yet. So
exactly.
The Articuno is going to be interesting. I think you're right. Simone might just be trying to just say, you know what, I'm a little bit behind here. Hand doesn't support anything too crazy, so let's just set up a little bit and try and keep it rolling later on.
I mean, it could even be another Comfey here that he chooses from Raihan. I think that's also a solid choice, because then you have another scoop-up net target. You see a couple more cards from flower selecting. If you're content on passing anyway, it feels like a reasonable thing you can go for.
I think it was the 2nd V-Star, though, that he chose.
Yeah, just trying to be as tanky as possible, not give Luke the easy prize cards. It's going to be a turn attachment to the Hisuian Goodra, so it looks like we're passing here.
Wow, so let's see, does Snorlax wake up? No,
Snorlax still sleeping.
So,
and that's really bad for Luke, because as we know, the Bird Keeper, you can see it there in the top right of those prize cards. Luke has no other way of pivoting this Snorlax, so Simone actually has bought a turn of breathing room.
There's a sort of one downside to Snorlax. It has a lot of upsides, a lot of HP, can hit hard, basic Pokemon, but having to flip 2 coins to wake up can be costly, especially in a deck we don't play a ton of switching cards like a Lost Box would. And you unfortunately prize your 1 copy of Bird Keeper. Might be what Luke's actually just checking for here and just being like, okay, right. So I think Simone, even though hasn't set up too much here, has got the turn back.
Luke just thinking, I can't believe the Snorlax is just snoring away.
Go on, Snorlax, do us a favour.
And Luke really doesn't have much in hand. He's thinned a number of evolution cards and is simply going to Marnie to reset Simone back down to that sort of lower hand size. But will end up just passing the turn. No pressure from him at all here. may still use some Primal Turbos. There are markers on the Archeops, so that's from the previous turn. He actually can still use those if he wants to. But yeah, it's a real big break for Simone.
There was some interesting rumours in the Lugia deck that I heard from Australians playing a wind-up arm in their Lugia. So in this scenario, would be able to actually just irradiate that out for the Snorlax. But Luke obviously not opting to play that wind-up arm. And like you said, looks like I think he's going to have to just maybe attach some energies and just hope the Snorlax wakes up, giving Simone that extra turn. I think he kind of needed to stay in this game.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you even want to Primal Turbo, possibly one energy to Lugia. But again, you like keeping your options open to you.
Yeah.
Committing Powerful feels a little bit awkward. I think I like most maybe just another Catch Energy or a V-Guard at the absolute most. But you want to keep a number of colorless, certainly powerful energy around for your Stoutland.
Yeah,
Here we go, though. It is going to be to Lugia. So you've turned off your opportunity to Stoutland through a Comfey with this choice. But it may not be a line that's always open to you. You know that Simone can scoop up net and not have to Comfey in the later stages of the game. And it's just making sure that, again, Luke doesn't get caught short with your Archeops getting targeted by Simone.
Well, Snorlax is still asleep. I mean, this could be the turn where Snorlax gets sent to a discard pile, though. And the Marnie treated Simone well. That as we see the Colress come down. I think that's Simone's first Colress, actually, right?
It sure is.
Unless we get there. Colress, a boss, escape rope. Wow, these are all good cards, actually.
Net as well. This is looking excellent for Simone. Can he get towards that 7? I still think it's a little bit tricky for him because he only has one board space for one more select, and I don't know if he has access to it. So he may still only be able to use a cram hit here. But if Luke continues to sleep, that's not really a problem for him.
Yeah, I mean, Gudra loves this, right? Gudra just wants to get set up these big tanks and just start swinging. And if Simone just has these turns to do that while leaving a 1 prizer in the active as well. Oh, Choice Belt's actually interesting as well. Good card there, maybe to get into Lugia V's. We do see the discard pile.
It's going to go straight away. I think it was against the Temple of Sinnoh.
Oh, well.
No contest there.
And I tell you what, Luke is looking a bit destroyed. Simone is off to the races. Wow.
6 in the loss zone. I think Simone will still just end up using Spit Innocently here.
Yeah.
As he's not been able to find another Comfey. But I think you're still pretty happy with this. Because again, Luke, I mean, he kept his board open for Luminion to possibly get a Birdkeeper. From Simone's perspective, of course.
Yes.
So he's still aware of that, but even getting this chip damage in can set up for a Greninja play later. And we know that Gudra hits 200 so cleanly on a Lugia. Ooh. Can be very helpful, and man, look at this.
Got the Snake Eyes there with the double
for Luke.
Right, and it's so unfortunate again they prized the Birdkeeper, so sort of at the mercy of Lugia here. I mean, not Lugia, Snorlax. When Snorlax wants to wake up. Here we see Luke playing a quick ball by the looks of it, and let's see what he searches. Get rid of the Stoutlands, like you said. Now that all the powerfuls have been committed, Stoutland's going to be a non-factor, and as we see here, hit the discard pile.
There's really not much Luke can do. Like, sure, maybe some hand disruption is your best option, but even then, it doesn't feel that great. You're again just at the mercy of Simone right now. And your own Snorlax betraying you like this. Heartbreaking to see.
Betraying you. He's like, come on, Snorlax, come on.
I put you in here, I gave you a chance.
The thing is, even if Luke does hand disrupt, let's say with Armani, for example, Simone, I mean, worst case scenario, Simone just maybe attaches energy and just attacks again. So it's not even like that.
It's not the right time to hand disrupt, is it really?
Yeah, so...
Yeah, the Snorlax has really halted the game for Luke. Typically, you expect Snorlax to get knocked out or pushed around. You know, you boss's orders something else that's more valuable. But when that doesn't come together, it really can be detrimental here. We will see an Oranguru hit the board for a Primate Wisdom instead, protecting some cards whilst putting another decent top deck ready for you on the following turn. But it is just more coins to be flipped here. It's actually going to be a Primal Turbo, so Luke is resetting the deck, so he doesn't draw into the card that he put to the top, which was an Aurora Energy. He just doesn't want to top deck into those. He'd rather have them available to Primal Turbo when he needs. He's still not in a bad position by any means. No. He's still a prize ahead. It's just that he could have been in a way better position had the Snorlax woken up. Yeah,
like if you imagine if there was a Lugia Tempest diving right now, Snorlax still asleep. If there was a Lugia Tempest diving right now, Simone could be in a whole world of trouble. But as it stands now, Simone has just got all the time in the world looking at, you know, he has got the Mirage Gate in hand now. I don't think he's at 7, he's at 6, so does need to play probably that Colress experiment.
Well, if he finds boss's orders from this poker gear, I love the idea of hitting into Yveltal with Cramorant. That could be huge. Does find boss's orders. This could be massive. Denying Yveltal is huge here for Simone.
Now, that, like you said, Luke wasn't in a bad position, right? Just wasn't, you know, in a super commanding one. However, if the Yveltal does get KO'd, that really slams the door shut on Luke having an easy response to a Goodra, especially when you consider Goodra always has Moisture Star available, just effectively removing a Tempest Dive, right? That is a strong turn. You can even combine it with Temple of Sinnoh as well, saying like, wow, strong turns.
I mean, Simone's debating it, but surely this is the best play available to you. Yveltal is such a threat. I know the snapping Snorlax is tempting to sort of stick in play, and maybe you do some cheeky Radiant Greninja spreads around different Pokemon, but it feels like Yveltal is crucial to this matchup. So clearing it off the board, knowing that Lugia doesn't play any Pokemon recovery is massive. It's the only action Simone needed to take this turn. He equals up the prize race and gets rid of a monster threat.
Almost reminds you that when you're playing Art Duraludon, right, your first target, if there's Yveltal for any reason is knocking about, just get rid of it. Like you said, Lugia players don't play Ordinary Wild, don't play Thornton, anything like this.
And look at this, Luke debating, can I really bring the Snorlax back into the active when my Birdkeeper's prized? He's done me dirty so far in the game.
And that's the beautiness of taking a KO with the Cramorant. It's still a one prizer, right? Luke doesn't want to send the Lugia in against that, but like it's like pick your poison, send your Lugia in, then it gets the first, you know, quote-unquote big hit from a Goodra, or use the Snorlax and you're at the mercy of this again.
Not much help from the Oranguru either. Luke will have to turn attach again to this Snorlax to take a knockout, thanks to the Temple of Sinnoh.
Oh, goodness.
Which is really rough. Also choosing to play another Lugia down.
Guess that Lugia...
It will be a Primal Turbo instead here.
So I guess that Lugia is kind of safe since you saw the Choice Belt get...
Had Luca found a way to bounce Stadium from his Primate Wisdom, he could have used a Boss's Orders and a Thumping Snore with the help of his 2 powerful Colorless Energy for some higher damage output, but still not ideal for him. Luke's just in an awkward position. Research in hand with double Turbo Energy. You're getting rid of another Lugia V-Star if you are playing Professor's Research here. It's not ideal, and once again, sending the Snorlax always comes with its risks.
Especially since you consider, like you said, it's going to have to attach another energy to the Snorlax, and just, oh my goodness, like what a unfortunate turn of events there for Luke. The Temple of Sinnoh, what? I mean, that turn would have been good, Simone, even without the Temple of Sinnoh. You had to really just...
Now it's nasty.
It's gone from a, oh, that's a good turn, to, oh, that is a good turn.
Luke really has to be aware of this Temple of Sinnoh. He has a second Primal Turbo. He's committing a lot of these energies to Lugia. So I think possibly the second Primal Turbo will be 1 energy to Snorlax, and then you turn attach the DTE to the new Lugia. Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be the Heat Fire Energy sort of sacrificed into this Snorlax so that you don't force yourself down the route where you miss the Stadium bounce. So Snorlax can at least respond on the Cramorant. You stay ahead in the prize race, but things are looking a little bit dicey. We know that Goodra can just buy so much time against Lugia, and it is just simply going to be a thumping snore. He's woken up. Can you believe it?
Oh, just checking the discard pile, and Luke's thinking, "What could you do that earlier, Snorlax? Come on now, you got like, you ain't got much HP left now, son."
I'm sure there would be a wry smile if we could see it, knowing Luke.
Yeah, cheers. That's always the way. Back over to Simone after he is in the driver's seat at this moment in time. Let's see what Simone is with. That hand is huge. You have
monster hand size, has right hand, so no doubt he's going to have a very strong turn. Flower selecting first, just for a little bit of additional information. I think easy choice of Comfey there, hitting the Lost Zone. Is that another Boss's Orders that's found its way into the hand?
For only playing 2 copies of Boss's Orders, Simone has been clinical with those Boss's Orders. Oh my goodness.
And if Simone actually has Choice Belt available, thanks to Sinnoh turning off V-Guard energy, he could even use a Boss's Orders knockout on the Lugia V as well. But the Choice Belt has found its way into the Lost Zone, and he only plays 1 copy. Yeah. But it is going to be an escape rope nonetheless.
Big Oranguru probably. Ooh. It's an interesting decision, actually.
It's not easy for Luke.
We know, we do see the Choice Belt is in the loss, so you have to imagine that Goodra
yeah,
probably...
the big issue with bringing up Oranguru is that you know Simone has the possibility of using Mirage Gate and dealing with the Snorlax and leaving the chunky Oranguru in the active.
I see, yeah.
So I feel like you have to sacrifice an Archeops here. It is going to be the Greninja coming into the active position for Simone, so looks like it will be a Moonlight Shuriken this turn, as we are prepping the Greninja Simone keeping 1 prizes in the active as much as possible. He'll be finishing off the Snorlax, no doubt, and I think also hitting 90 onto Luke's Lugia V-Star, setting him up for a Goodra knockout on a following turn.
Wow, what a strong turn this is, right? Like you said, and I love this approach from Simone. Like, you're playing Goodra V-Star, very tanky deck, two prize dagger, very tanky. So Simone saying, if I can just maximize my 1 prize value for as long as possible, and then in the late game just send up this army of 2 Goodra, one of which will be able to just heal off all the damage, knowing that Luke hasn't got that auto response anymore via Yveltal, just really stacking the cards in his favor here, I feel. And if I'm Luke right now, I'm just a little bit disheartened. Like, wow, like, this is all pressure. He hasn't even rolled an iron once yet, and like, I'm just on the ropes. Like, jeez.
Yeah, Simone definitely taking his time with his decision. Because there's no immediate choice, it tells me that he's already got access to some gate plays, might need some energy recovery perhaps. But it's really how else he can turn the screw here. He's already got the energy with Raihan, so he can even commit turn attachment to a bench Pokemon perhaps and get even closer towards his ideal board state. But everything's going his way. He's going to now continue to level up the prizes, but also set up a Lugia, which is so massive.
Like you said, bringing that Lugia into range of the Rolling Iron is, like you said, so disastrous for Luke, because, like we said, Simone can always Moisture Star off, right? So the end of this game will just come into Lugia slamming into Goodras. But if Simone can just one-shot the Lugia and then heal off the next one, it's like, it seems very hard for Luke to be able to win that prize trade under those circumstances.
And just a Mirage Gate for 1. Simone has too many energy in hand, but can commit his water as a turn attachment alongside Raihan. So it's the long way around, but at least he is able to use this Radiant Greninja. Definitely feels like the best play available to him. Sets him up so nicely to keep up, go back onto an even prize trade, and threaten this Lugia so nicely. The math is working wonders here.
What a turn that was. I am stunned. And Simone's still leaving at 1 prize in active, saying you're going to have to try and find a boss as well, Luke. Like, golly. I mean, Luke does have a boss, but now has the Arc
like
option active.
Moisture Star just means that boss's orders feels kind of futile, right? You know that's going to happen at some point now that Yveltal's gone, but it feels so bad with a damaged Lugia to bring up a Pokemon from Simone and then just know it's going to get completely wiped off. There's no way Luke can really get around this either. For me, I feel like boss's orders is still the correct play. Just get the Moisture Star done, get it out the way.
Sort of get a turn ahead, as it were.
Exactly, because it's basically inevitable at this stage. So just make sure it happens sooner rather than later so you can plan the rest of your game. Looks like Luke was trying to protect boss's orders so he doesn't get rid of it with research. But again, more of a debate. Actually going to try and protect the energy perhaps here.
I think it was the energy, so maybe...
Draws into an Aurora. They're a lot less valuable now. Obviously, the Yveltal has been knocked out and there is a Raikou prized. So they are less strong, but still a little bit awkward to get rid of.
There we see an Ultra Board as well, so that will shuffle the deck. So whatever card was on the top is no longer there. And if you're Luke now, I mean, obviously against the ropes, I'm trying to work out what is playing to your outs here. How do you get yourself back into this game?
It's a great question. You still have some 1 prize attacking threats like Radiant Charizard, so trying to now force yourself into a 1 prize route is going to be really important. Simone's just put himself back onto an even prize map, so maybe trying to weave in some of these attackers is going to be useful here if you have enough resources for it.
And that is the one thing about Lugia. As the game does go on, those energies start to get, you know, lower and lower. Lugia's deck, for the most part, are energy-hungry attackers there, as we see 5 energy in total on the Lugia, thanks to that Temple of Sinnoh. That's another hurdle I forgot about, actually, because it's been in play so long. Temple of Sinnoh is still knocking about as well.
So I think that means that Luke probably Ultra Balled for Pumpkaboo and will be pumping away the Temple of Sinnoh. Now he's commit a 3rd powerful colorless. He needs to get the value while he can. And we know he has boss's orders still remaining in hand. It feels like that's going to be the route for Luke here.
Don't mind it. Get that damage in nice and early. Force that Moisture Star. There is the
Pumpkin Pit. There it is.
There it is.
We need to have a look at what energies are available. It's going to go for the metal energy, seeing as though there's 2 water on board. Well, they're actually the same. It's just a glare for me here. But yeah, it's going to be retreats into the Lugia. You have to cash in on your powerfuls as you commit so many of them. And Luke going down to just 2 prize cards remaining. But Simone has probably an easy route to get a response KO here. And that's when the game actually, like, technically really begins. Only at 2 prizes because there's still a huge amount of goo to get through.
So this has been a really weird game because, like you said, the sort of quote-unquote matchup for me, at least in this game, is only just starting. We're going to see Gudra into Lugia, but Luke has, all credit to him, navigated himself down to 2 prize cards left. Now, don't make any mistake about it. These are going to be a hard 2 prize cards to take, but Luke does have an avenue here. Don't forget, Simone still has to use that Articuno as well. We could still see that.
They don't even come up.
Yeah, like on the second Lugia,
right.
It could just be like, you just wait there for let me paralyze you, and then I'll come in. Like,
yeah, for
still
sure.
Simone's game to lose here, but being at 2 prize cards for Luke is a good scenario to be in.
And he has a monster hand size right now, Simone. A lot of options to consider. Has turn attached a energy to Gudra, and we will see a concealed cards now for 2 additional. I'm not sure if I even see Mirage Gate in here, or if he has it, he may not have energy recovery. So it may actually still be down to some selects. Not everything's mapped out for Simone perfectly here.
That's the point. We have a big, massive hand. You think, I've got all these cards and still not the ones I need. Flower selected. Let's see what.
It's another peak from Simone. Is going to get rid of the Scuba Net, so it must be a decent card.
Yeah, it had to be a good card. That discard pile is looking rather big, though. Like, going to have to. Let's see if we can see. Go on, Luke. Let's see as well.
Yeah, we need to see some resources. I know one Mirage Gate is obviously in the prize cards. And 1 is played, and I think you were saying he plays 3 copies, so it's a difficult card to fish out here. So Simone, even with this large hand size, is still kind of fishing a little bit.
Now I have to say a big shout out there to the camera operator. As soon as that discard ball is getting looked through,
Mirage Gate hitting the zone tells us
that has to be a good card then.
It has to be a good card. I think it was Roxanne, perhaps, was in Simone's selection.
I think Roxanne's already in his hand, isn't it? Does he play 2?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, he's been holding on to Roxanne since the start of the game, I believe. Yeah. So what is that? Has to be a monstrous card. Let's have a look.
It's either this fact or the fact that he simply doesn't have a way of recycling his energy in the discard pile, which makes him think, well, this Mirage Gate's not too helpful for me right now, regardless. So what looked like a really good turn for Simone is now looking a little bit of a dud. Might not even launch any attack this turn.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Perhaps the boss's orders for Pump Kaboo is his best play here. Try and force even more energy removal from Luke.
I don't mind it, actually. I don't mind it.
If you can't attack this turn, bring up a pumpkin. It can't even, it has to retreat. It's more energy going. We saw Simone sifting through the discard pile from Luke that lots of those resources have already gone. And Luke's still unable to find the Birdkeeper from his prizes. That's been the story of this series so far.
And I think we've seen both DTEs. I think the Snorlax. Oh, no, okay.
All right, we got one. Boss's orders, and that's the game. My goodness.
Wow.
Completely flipping the script. We thought Simone was in a fantastic position, but it was actually Luke with the crucial boss's orders. Somehow his powerful colorless energies stayed on the board, and he's able to take 4 prizes on Gudra, completely avoiding the Moisture Star.
Wow, what a strange game that was. But like I said, Luke was managing to just stay in the game, take some clutch KOs. And now I think we can see arguably some of the weaknesses of a lost injury. That even though you are seeing on turns, like 6, 7, 8 cards, because you haven't got a lot of search outside of Raihan, sometimes we need to piece together, Mirage Gate plus Ordinary Rod or Energy Recycler. Sometimes you only have 2 pieces of a 3-piece puzzle. And Luke managing to even it up there.
Yeah, I think that really was the story of that game, not having any energy recycle. We saw how early on we saw a lot of concealed cards getting that large hand size for Simone, but then you have your Mirage Gates, but nothing to do with them. There's no resources remaining for you, and simply allowing a Lugia to run riot over the board was too much pressure to deal with.
Especially when you said the Tempo Sinnoh doesn't stick, and that's the thing. If Bowling Iron doesn't get online, Gudra is just sat there at it's 270 health, I believe.
It's actually vulnerable.
Yeah, it's vulnerable, and Lugia has no issues getting to 270. Like you said, 3 powerfuls gets there, and wow, Luke's thinking, oh, I got away with one there, I feel, and now it's all to play for in the game 3.
Yeah, the attack effect of Rolling Iron is just so important, and not being able to launch a Rolling Iron basically throughout the entire game was strange to see. It seemed correct on certain turns for Simone,
no, for sure.
But then he sort of hit the brakes on that final turn where it looked like he was just about to take over the game. It was a real nice break for Luke here, who's now found himself into Game 3. Game 1, nothing really went to plan for him. He only got one Archeops. It was dealt with very early. In the second game, it was more routine for him. He got the double Archeops established. He did have a napping Snorlax, let's not forget, but he still was able to find an avenue to win, and it means that we have this thrilling Game 3 ahead of us.
Wow, prize cards for both players, not looking too terribly impactful.
That Snorlax always starting for Luke.
That Snorlax is eager. I love that start. So I was like, right, Luke, don't worry, mate. I know last game I was messing about, but this game, I'm going to get it. So it looks like Simone is starting again with the VIP Battle Pass in hand, things you'd love to see.
Yep, Convey as well in the active position, so perfect start for Simone, who will continue to look through the deck. It's always really important for Lost Zone players to actually scout their prize cards, their Pokemon, their energy, also really important to track throughout the entire game. We saw that in the second game, how detrimental it can be. But it looks like, yep, double Convey. Early Goodra might indicate we see a Catch Energy in hand as well for Simone, or any energy just to commit to your Goodra early is also helpful.
No, 100%.
But we will see some selects here. A few more cards to go.
Worth noting, Simone's only copy of Ordinary Rod is in the prize card. Wow. Don't see that too often. The VIP Battle Pass getting sent to the Lost Zone. But Simone's hand's actually full of basic Pokemon now. The Greninja's there. There's another Gudra V now. Luke's thinking, golly, that's a VIP Battle Pass hitting the Lost Zone turn 1. What an unholy hand has Simone got?
An attached retreat for Simone here. So a second flower selecting. It's going to choose to get rid of a Scoop Up Net. And again, there is a Catch Energy in hand. It's going to get concealed away for a couple additional cards. Like you said, Simone has access to a ton of Pokemon already here, so wasn't too fussed about capture. So we'll simply pass things over to Luke, who has his own Capture Energy at the very least. So he will begin to establish Lugia. Has a Quick Ball, is going to get rid of a Stoutland. So that tells us there's no means of finding Archeops, which is a little bit awkward for him. But it looks like an Oranguru and Lugia's being eyed up. I think that's because there's Capture Energy available, so it might be Capture to the active, perhaps, to power up, or sorry, to get a Lugia established. Oh no, actually has another Lugia in hand, so lots of basic Pokemon available. Only has Birdkeeper as his supporter.
So maybe we're going to see Birdkeeper read the wind just to try and draw cards, maybe.
Looks like Luke is going to try and use Primal Wisdom first before Capture Energy. He had lots of energy in hand, so you put one of those energy onto the top of the deck before capturing out a basic Pokemon, resetting the 3 cards that you're about to see, and who knows, maybe you find an even better supporter off the top. And you do
get a research.
It's expensive though. Getting rid of your Birdkeeper, you know the risks when there's a Snorlax active. Perhaps double Turbo Energy. So you're saying no to read the wind if you don't do this, but instead he is just going to get rid of the Birdkeeper here. See as many cards as possible with the research.
I don't mind it, you know, in this Game 3 scenario where you have to imagine time is going to be a factor. Maybe Luke just thinking if I can start taking prize quickly, maybe Snorlax decides to stay awake. I can just try and just, you know, then set up a Lugia, start swinging with that, try and win this game fast.
Oh, the hand is ugly.
Whoa, hold on a second.
Pokemon. Not too much help, though.
Charizard.
No Archeops in sight so far.
Probably not a card you see get benched too often this matchup, that Radiant Charizard. Not terribly helpful. And a pass over to Simone, that's unfortunate.
I don't really like this bench either, because now you can't use Luminion next turn, and the only thing he had in hand was Ultra Ball. And now if you Luminion, you'll only ever be able to get one Archeops established, so a little bit awkward for Luke. Obviously a terrible research for him, not much help at all. But it puts him in, again, an awkward position on the next turn now as well.
And kicking it over to Simone, thinking, okay, not the greatest. I mean, if I'm Simone, I'm probably thinking, anytime that Raging Charizard's on the bench, I'm thinking, oi, something's going wrong here for Luke. So I know that is not a card you want to see. Temple of Silas, Simone is putting very good cards in the Lost Zone right here. And let's see what Simone does. Does have a Capture Energy, I believe, as well. Does opt to go for concealed cards. And Simone's just drawing so many cards. This Lost Zone engine, you know what I mean? It just gets a little bit ridiculous, doesn't it?
That's what it's all about. We end up on a Cramorant. There's 4 in the Lost Zone and a Boss's Orders going to target the Lugia V to try and get that peppered up with 110 damage.
And just bringing it into range again of a Rolling Iron. And again, leaving a 1 prizer in the active might have worked so well for Simone last game, but this 110 damage is so impactful, I believe. And Simone, having 4 cards in the Lost Zone, getting there, still hasn't found a Colress, actually.
Yeah, he's done it all manually with flower selecting so far. I think Luke picked up a research for his turn draw, which could be massive here.
Love to see that.
going to be an Ultra Ball. Luke now can grab an Archeops, you have to imagine, so that can be researched away.
Yeah.
I believe that's what I saw from the top. So it means that we are likely to still see a Summoning Star here, which is so important for Luke because he wouldn't have, again, any more board space to put down like another Panic Lugia in this instance. He has to be attacking this turn.
And we see the Aurora energies that might even discard Archeops as well. I guess it wouldn't matter if it is a research. I'm debating whether to attach it to Charizard.
All right, maybe putting it active, giving yourself the opportunity to only have one Summoning Star target. It's actually going to be a Marnie.
It's a Marnie.
So that makes sense. Committing the Aurora gives you pretty good odds, even if you just use one Summoning Star target this turn, to still attack here. So it's going to be... it looks like the time on the round.
Yeah.
So it looks like there's not enough turns for either player to win the game by the looks of things. So we are going to resolve in a tie here. It seemed in that third game Simone was in a commanding position, but still far too many turns to be able to conclude that third game.
Yeah, and I think that would have been interesting to see how that would have panned out if there was more time, because like we did see in the second game, Simone was in a strong position, but then Lugia was able to just hang around. And we did see some interesting cards in the last one, like the Temple of Sinnoh, for example. And I feel a little bit sad, actually. We never got to see the Articuno. I was really intrigued to see how that would pan out in the matchup. So maybe we'll get that on later on and we can see how the Articuno affects that matchup.
Yeah, it seemed like nothing really went to plan in either of those games. The first game, Lugia was sort of stumbling with just the one Archeops, and as we said a few times, it sort of got picked off early, and that basically shuts down the entire deck at that stage. So the Goodra was able to have a commanding position. In game two, Simone actually looked like he was in the better spot. He just couldn't make things come together with those last few flower selectings and concealed cards. He just didn't have access to the right resources right at the end. So Luke really sort of swept it under the rug and was able to bring back that game. So a tie, I think, on reflection is pretty okay for both players.
And they're the sort of games, I feel, Joe, where I think everyone can pilot a deck when everything's going right. Like if you get turn 2 Summoning Star, all your stuff Lugia playing, you can win games. Same with Goodra. If you get a turn 2 Rolling Iron, it can be quite easy to win games. But it's those games where things aren't going correct that I think can really separate, you know, good players from the great players, right, who can just navigate these really awkward scenarios, especially in a deck like Goodra where you're manipulating Lost Zone as well. So many moving pieces, you know, some cards in the Lost Zone, some are in the prizes, some are in the discard, I have to find this, have to find that. And sometimes it just gets a little bit hard, so shout out to both players. I think playing them really well, actually.
Yeah, and again, it's one of these balanced matchups, I think it's fair to say. We've seen what Goodra can do to make life difficult for Lugia, force them to have stadium bounces, try and pick off key attackers in the matchup. And Lugia, you know, it's not always going to be on those full cylinders either. So, you know, having to navigate those opening hands is still always a challenge for that archetype.
100%. And there we even saw Luke taking a gambit in game one, thinking, all right then, so things aren't going too good. Let me just Summoning Star for one and see if I can navigate my out of it. But Simone was like, hold on a second. Let me get that to the discard file, please.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate, that sort of tempo that you gain from just getting one Archeops developed and initiating a prize race and getting one attacker developed versus sort of waiting around with no guarantee that you even get full value on a Summoning Star the next turn. So I don't necessarily think it was like a wrong choice by any means from Luke. It just seemed to all fall into place for Simone to completely capitalize on that choice.
And that's what you have to do sometimes when you're playing the game, is just really, like, if you notice your opponent maybe not firing on all cylinders or not doing well, it's still down to you to actually win that game, right? I mean, maybe we saw in game two where both players, again, I mean, looked like Simone was in a really good spot, like you said, and then Luke was, you know, doing okay, but Simone couldn't quite actually get over that hurdle to win, giving Luke that little bit of opportunity to come back. So I think, like you said, on reflection, a tie seems like a pretty fair result, all things considered.
Yeah, it's always going to be a close game when you are at these regional and special events where there's so much on the line. People have put a lot of testing in with their decks and they're all very adept at them. You're never going to have any free rounds at this stage, even this early on in the tournament. People are going to be bringing their A game, and it's inevitable that if you face another strong player with a strong deck, you're going to be put through the ringer and it's going to be a really tough round. And
I think that's also alludes to the fact that, you know, to sort of the online era, as it were. You know, I think all the players now know about Limitless, and, you know, access Pokestats, anything like this. So everyone has access to, like, past tournament results, current deck lists. And I think the sort of average skill player of the player now, of the player base, I should say, is really increasing. And like you said, I don't think you get any freebies at this event, especially if you're starting off 2-0.
Yeah, so much access to information and so much easy testing available to you that everyone has the opportunity to really master their deck in any format. And we are in a mature format. We've had many weeks and bumps now within this same set, so it's very easy for us to put a lot of time in, a lot of reps with one deck. So there's no excuse for anyone out here today. Everyone has to have put a lot of time in.
100%. And even though I'm sure viewers are thinking, oh, the formats, oh, and this, that, and the other. Hold on a second. Did you, if I told you it was going to be Articuno in Gudra yesterday, what would you have said?
Yeah.
And I'm sure I bet in the last region as well, we saw Greedent in top 8 as well. So don't tell me now that the format is still boring. There is stuff going on and innovation still being seen. We haven't even seen Articuno yet. But I do believe, again, Ross is out wandering around. So let's see who he's talking to and what he's got lined up for us.